Hey everybody. So I was in the middle of these 3345s when it dawned on me that this actually might make a really good video. These were lasted too tight around the inner sole, and so everything's going to have to be changed. Plus it's a customized build that we don't normally offer. So I think you guys will really enjoy what we got to do here. As Cobbler Tobias says, stick along. Okay, so what makes this a unique build and why I thought it might become a good video is because it's great training purposes here. If you see right here where I'm pushing, this is the inner sole pressing against the sidewall of the upper, and here's the welt. Look, they're equal. So the customer was complaining that when he was going up steps or somewhere where he was putting a lot of pressure on the ball of his foot, he was getting a pain on each side of his foot underneath the big toe and the pinky toe. And so when I got this and was looking at it, if you look, you can see how narrow this looks. See, here's the inner sole way out here. Normally, this is out here by the edge of the inner sole, not completely at the edge. It's slightly tucked under, so it has that nice roll, but this is way under, and it's way under on both sides. So I think we're going to find that what happened was the gimming was installed improperly, and then when they did the lasting, it rolled everything over. So if you take and compare, here's another pair of, these are Iron Rangers. They're exactly the same size. They're a 9D. If you take them and line them up with each other from the heels to the ball of the foot area, and see, I'm lining up this side over here, the medial side, I'm lining it up. Look how the lateral side is, this one is landing on the inside of this one. So it's literally squeezed so much tight that it's a good 1/4 of an inch off, and that's what's causing this boot to wrap around and be too far under. So let's take them apart and see what we get ourselves into. Okay, so now I've got the cork and hot glue out of my way and everything, just so we can see what we're doing and what a difference I expect that we're going to be making. I'm going to trace on the inner sole here along the gimming where it's currently placed. That way, when we get ready to put everything back, we'll see what a difference we made in the way that this boot fits, and all the parts go back together the way it should have. So I'm using a little bit of a solvent made for thinning down glues and stuff. That way it reacts and doesn't damage the upper, to loosen up this gimming so I don't tear it up trying to get everything apart. Because we're doing this without relasting. because we don't offer relasting services. So there are ways to do it without having to have the last, because the last is really for shaping the upper. The upper's already been shaped over a last, so we really don't have to do that. Now the question is, am I going to have to remove this gimming and put new gimming on, or can I find a way to line everything up? Now see here, if I line the edge of the gimming up with the edge of that, see how it's coming in here to our line? So the gimming got flattened out and messed up during the lasting process, so I'm definitely going to have to replace the gimming on this job. So that's what we'll start doing, is taking all this apart. See these staples? They put these staples in from the factory to hold everything together until they get it all glued together. And these staples, even though they're great for the factory, they're a nightmare for us repairmen, because they will slice you in a heartbeat, and the cut is way worse than getting cut with a razor blade. So you have to be very careful. See, there's one trying to bite me. Okay. So now I want to clean all this up, and I'm going to put new gimming on, and then we'll go start from there. Alright, so I got my first piece of gimming measured out. Now I'm just going to take and duplicate that. Make me 2 of them. And put the gimming away. Alright, so gimming comes with glue already on it, but we found that it'll stick fine as far as just getting us going, and it seems like everything's okay, but it just doesn't stick good enough. So I prefer to use that original glue as a primer. Then I know that I'm using my glue on both surfaces, and I know it's going to bond a lot better that way. So on this job right here, you see right here where the old welt, that indentation where the old welt was, I want to take and match that right up to there. And then I kind of come around. Don't pull it tight as you're measuring your welting out. Then I want to go to there, and then I'm going to add an inch just to be on safe measure. Cut it off. And then I'm going to duplicate my welt again. So this welting comes pre-dyed. This is actually Red Wing, we call it Red Wing color. These welts are made for Red Wing, and so when you buy a pair of Red Wings and you see that color welt, it comes on the welt already done from the manufacturer. So we got to take it and get rid of this dye so that we can make it a different color, because we're not going to be doing these with the Red Wing color. So I'm going to lightly sand this off with a very smooth grit paper to get rid of it, and then we're going to dye the welts to match our special job. This is a little difficult because I'm not completely taking the boot off of the inner sole. So I got to make sure I get that gimming all the way in there where I want it, but at the same time not let it distort what I'm trying to do with the gimming. So if you notice, the gimming has a little thin lip on this side and a wide one on this side. That little thin lip is a spacer that allows you to line up with the edge of the inner sole and just stick that little bit as you work it around. Then you stand the sidewall up like this so that it shows a 90-degree from the fat tape. And what happened when this gimming was being put on is it all got put on like this, and then that brought the spread over, and then when they were stitching it, they were grabbing it with the machine, but it was way far in, and that's what gave us the cave in, and that's what I meant earlier when I said, oh, the gimming was messed up. So what I want to do is I want to stick this right around this edge, just this outer lip. Now they have a cool machine in the manufacturer that does this for them. Makes it a lot easier. Like they would already be done with a pair compared to me just trying to get this. So see, now I want to stand this up and I want to stick the gimming where it belongs. I recently toured the Allen Edmonds shoe manufacturing facility and watched all of their operations. It's a very cool tour if you could ever get a chance to do it. They're in Wisconsin, and I think it's an awesome experience for everyone to see how fine quality footwear is made in a manufacturing level. So you can see right here, even with my gimming tape, it may be different than theirs. Like this could be wider, but you can see that blue line, how I'm bringing it over. It's really going to change the way that upper wraps around the inner sole. Okay, so now you can see here how this turns up 90 degrees. Is to the lip, comes in right here, and that is what places our gimming that everything is sewn to, giving us the proper amount of upper overlap by the inner sole when everything is sewn. Now that inner sole won't be overhanging the welt any more than that little bit right there, which is the right amount. And then once we get it all sewn together, I'll compare it to the the other shoe boot like I did before, so you can see the difference. So now it's time to attach the welts, and here's where the special part comes in. So on this particular boot, we're going to try to make it look like a PNW turn down construction. And the way we're going to do that is I'm going to take and measure from where the welt begins right here to the waist area, and from right here around to about, till it gets to the other side of the waist area. I'm going to dye that black, and I'm going to leave the rest natural. So I'm making me a mark here. Bring this around nice and tight. And make me a mark over here. As if it was the upper. See? And I'll dye the underside to match these marks. Then this back half will be raw. So when you're doing new gimming versus reusing the factory gimming, it's a little bit more difficult because you have to, just like any other time, you have to line up your hole through your upper, but then you have to line your upper. See, I'm lining it up with the gimming so that I come through at the bottom of the gimming. I don't want to be too high, I don't want to be too low. I want it to stay even. See how I've been even through here? That's the key. You don't want to have your stitches zigzagging all over the place. Whereas when you're using the original gimming, it already has the holes and you're able just to slide everything through. Now I mentioned earlier about all the staples that the factory uses. The reason that they do that is, as you can see, the upper is just loose. It's not attached to the boot. They put this on a machine and it sews the welt to the upper, and so the staple is the slower process, more controlled for the guy who's running the staple gun to line everything up and staple it in place. That way when they put it on the welt machine, they can just zip right around. And if he happens to put a staple in the wrong spot, it's a lot easier for him to pull out one staple than to remove the entire welting. And so that's why the factories like to use that staple process. So if you've watched some of my other videos, you already know this, but if this is your first time watching one of my videos, when you're coming around the toe and getting ready to pull your stitch tight, you want to make sure that you lift your welt up, because if your welt is pinched down like this, then it's extremely hard to fold it over and make it match the sole, and it's always wanting to pull loose and can cause delamination problems at the very tip of the toe. So right before I pull it tight, I lift the welt up, and that way I'm pinching the leather right here in an upward position, and you can see it's creating a straighter shelf right here as I'm going around. If you hear any noise in the background, that's Cobbler Tobias helping me with this pair. He's welting the other boot. I didn't want people to get the wrong idea that I actually do a lot of work. He does most of it. At least that's consensus that I hear rumored around about me anyway. Now the last stitch, I like to take it, leave it a little loose right here, pull it through. Like that. Pull it all the way in. I tie it once, and then I do a double loop. This being a wax thread, it really locks it in good. Boom. Cut it at a slight angle. Now I'm going to bevel that with the sandpaper so it'll be just like that one. And as you can see, I got my uppers are going to be lined up with each other around the front, and the back half will be natural. Now the next thing I like to do before I go and do this is I like to bring that gimming down like it's supposed to be. Okay, so now let's see how we came out compared to our boot that we were comparing it to earlier. So I'm lining the upper up, and it looks like we came out dead on the money. So, and you can see that this inner sole does not overhang the welt. See, it's way back from the outer edge of the welt, so everything should be real good. Alright, so now we want to make sure that both of our boots line up with each other. And get everything lined up, and yes, we have money. It's time to put the shanks in and do the heel rands. Now if you notice, I beveled the welts right here, and I beveled the new leather heel rands, so that way when I glue them together, they'll make a nice smooth transition from the top side and the bottom side. And then we'll put our steel shank in, then we're going to put our leather shank and do cork filler. Alright, so now I'm going to place the shank. When you're placing the shank, you want to find the right contour of the boot and lay it, because they send you all the same length shanks and you have different length boots. So the main thing is you do not want the shank to be right here in the flex area, because when the boot flexes for the gate, you don't want the shank pushing against the sole. The curvature should be right in the arch area, and it's typically about 1 inch from the back of the heel is where it should be placed. Now we want to put the heel ram in place. Stick that. And then I like to use a lasting tack. Okay, so now we're going to cement this, and we're actually going to be putting leather shanks on top of the steel shanks to get it a logger look and to give it that extra support for the logger type leather shank. So I've got to cement these and cement this for the new cork, and then we won't have to do cork in the back because we're filling in this void with the leather for the logger cork, for the logger shank. So I like to take the midsole and flex it for our customers. Kind of helps with the break-in period instead of having a rigid midsole like this. You can see this one's a lot more floppy, and that means that it's already been walked and flexed. That way they're not fighting such a beast, because we're already beasting these things up so much. The heel rand area down to the leather midsole instead of waiting and driving it through the rubber, because the rubber will bond really well to the leather, but nails tear through rubber real easy. So if you have a choice, it's much better to nail the leather down, get that area nice and secure. With the nails, and then you don't have to worry about your heel bases popping loose when somebody's using their wrong method for taking their boots off. Not that it can't happen, but it does reduce the chances. Now now that's nice and secure. I'm pulling hard, nothing's coming loose. We're good to go. If you look inside, you can see where all the nails from the heel being tucked under was nailed to the inner sole. And now these nails and then the nails that go through the heel bases will be in there. And then all of that gets covered up with this heel pad. And that's why you have those heel pads inside of boots and shoes, is they're covering those nails. Okay, I like to pull the thread on the inside since I'm going to be putting a rubber sole over the top. I like to pull the thread on the inside, snip it off with little bitty whips, so when I cement it, those will go down and I don't have to worry about that first stitch coming loose anywhere. Even the rubber soles, I like to flex them up. Alright, so I saved the original soles and wanted to compare them. We're going to go from the toe because we know we've got extra heel added right now for the heel ram. Look at the difference in that width. Now part of that has to do with the fact that I went with a wider welt so that we could do a double row stitch. And the other part has to do with the fact that we straightened the boot out and took it from it, even though it said 9D on the tongue, it was more like a 9A, so we took it back to a 9D. But no, we don't normally offer resizing services. We weren't resizing this boot, we were just taking it back to the correct size. We weren't trying to decide a new inner sole size or anything like that. So now it's time to do the second row of stitch, and let's get that done. So for the cobblers out there, this is something that I invented myself. So the channel groover comes with a washer or a collar that attaches to it and you move it around, but the collar spins with this as it's spinning, and it can grab and catch the side of the sole and make it jerky and snatchy. I didn't like that, so I invented this thing. You just add a little block here, a pole coming out, and then this can be moved and adjusted to the width away from the channel that you're wanting to cut. So I lay my boot up there or shoe that I'm wanting to channel and line it up with where I want my channel line to be, and then I lock that down once I've gotten it adjusted right up next to the sole. And then all I have to do is just slide right up against that, and I don't have to worry about that spinning. So again, because this is where the stitching is underneath in the area, like the heel base in this particular instance, pulling both through and leaving a little whip. If it's in an area where you do it here, you can't do that. You got to cut your thread off a lot more carefully. But this is intentionally being done this way. All right, so we've got a finished product here. As you saw going through the video, they're significantly wider like they're supposed to be. The inner soles are right up at the edge, of the welt instead of overlapping the welt. That should take care of the pain he was having in his foot going up hills and stairs and stuff. So we did a little bit of a special. I mentioned that we did it a little special. We were trying to make it kind of look like a stitch down construction. So I dyed the front half of the welt to look like it was the upper turned out, and then we did a double row stitch on there just like your stitch down constructions are. leaving the back half the natural leather like the stitch down constructions do and everything. Now the customer gave me leeway to do things that I wanted to. He had originally asked for a block heel, but I decided I like the way of a dogger heel came out on it. It's just a slight dogger, but I think it just came out on the boot a lot better. I didn't like the looks of the block when I got done with this particular job, so I just think it fit the boot better. So we did the Dr. Sole corded full soles and heels, thick leather midsoles. These things are beasts now, man. They're going to be great. I think he's going to love them. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hit subscribe. We need subscribers. Help keep the channel going. All right. Thanks.